introduce myself. My name is Rachel Bowles. I've been with Databound for 8 years in a number of different capacities, and I was very involved in the dashboard beta process. So while we were testing out the dashboard and making sure that we were developing something that would be useful for our customers. I'm going to be co-presenting with Kelly Blackman. Some of you may know him from the training and consulting side, and he is also EMUE's newest product manager. So he is going to have a big part in the dashboard going forward and the general vision for EMUE. So we can just take care of a couple of housekeeping things. During the presentation, we'll have everyone on mute, but we do want you to ask questions, so we'll pause a couple times throughout so that you can ask questions. So do write those down so that we can make sure that we get those questions answered. Additionally, if you have questions at the end that you forget about or later, you can email Kelly or myself, and then we can also send you the slides that we'll be going through if that would be helpful for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the things that we saw as our user base grew and as our users started to use EMUE more and more was that they were spending more time managing their scripts. So, you can have your scripts fully automated, but you still need to know that they ran successfully. So that might look like checking through emails or logging into EMUE machines just to make sure that the status of the scripts is what you expect it to be. So we thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to reduce that time spent and make managing scripts easier. We did a survey of all of our EMUE users and found that on average, our EMUE users spend about 5 hours per week managing their scripts. So this was a number that we wanted to reduce, and so during the beta process while we were testing out the dashboard, we actually found out in addition to reducing time spent managing scripts, there were a lot of other benefits that our users came across, and so I'll talk about those as well. So the solution for managing scripts that we came up with was an Emu Dashboard. So the dashboard is a web-hosted service that gives you status updates and lets you know what each of your EMUE scripts are doing across each of your EMUE machines. So it gives you one place that you can log in and see what's going on with all of your EMUE scripts, regardless of how many computers you're running them on at the same time. The other benefit of this is you don't have to get into your EMUE machine. So if you have maybe you just share a couple of EMUE PCs, you don't have to fight over those in order to check on scripts. And also, you don't have to be within your network in order to look and see what the status of your scripts are. You can look at the web dashboard from your phone, from your tablet, from your laptop, or in the office. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in how you're checking on your scripts. And that was something that our users, our beta users found useful so that one person didn't have to manage everything. They could really kind of share responsibilities more easily because more people had access to the dashboard than had access to their EMUE machines. So the dashboard that we created has 3 different views. So the first is what we call our system view. This is a view that allows our users to choose a particular PC, kind of like you would before you logged on, and then see what's either already been run on that machine, what's currently running, and what's going to run. So everything you need to know about a particular PC as far as EMUE is concerned. The second view is a script view. This is really similar to the system view, except it displays all of your scripts across all of your machines. So rather than having to look at a particular machine, you could say, hey, I'm interested in everything that's in an error state on any machine. And you could look at that all at once in one view. And then the third view is our schedule view, which is similar to, it kind of looks like a calendar, and this shows you what's coming up. So this will actually leverage your scheduled tasks, and it will look ahead and see, okay, you have scripts scheduled to run on Friday at 3 p.m. and on Saturday at 8 a.m., and you can see what that schedule looks like. So our users found that with that view, it was really helpful to figure out where to schedule new scripts, where to plan to reboot their PC, and where to run ad hoc scripts. So it gave them an easier way to manage the whole EMUE environment across multiple machines. So this is a quick screenshot, and I will do a demo and show you much more than this, but you can see that on this particular machine, we have a couple scripts that are in a processing state. We have one script that's shown in red here because it's in an error state, and then we have one script that is complete. You'll also know, you'll see the name of the script, this isn't showing the input file. You can actually customize which category or which columns you're showing, but you can see an input file. You can see when we expected the script to run, when did it actually run, when did it finish, and how many records have been completed. So even if a script isn't in an error state, but maybe it's one that takes 2 days to run and you want to know how far along are we, you can actually look at how many records are processed. Like in this case, there are 307 records processed of over 28,000. So that one will probably be running for a while. So let me switch over and actually show you the dashboard now. So this is a real dashboard that we actually use internally for our own testing. So these are real scripts that run on real PCs, and so I'll be using this for a demo. So as I mentioned before, the 3 views are shown on the left side here. So right here, regression, this is the name of our dashboard, and then we have the 3 views as options. So on the system view, you can see we have 7 PCs that are registered to this dashboard, and they're listed at the top by name. So these are meaningful to us. You would have your own computer names listed there, or you can even alias those computer names so that it says something like Rachel's PC, Kelly's PC, Emu test machine, you know, whatever makes more sense to you. You can change those so that it's easier for you to read. So the first tab underneath all of these PC names is what we call our Today tab, and that's a snapshot of what's going on today. So what has already run today, what's going to run today, and what is currently running. So if I scroll down here, you'll see that we have a lot of scripts that are already done running. We had a lot of morning processes that those finished, and then I could go through and see, okay, what is currently running and what's coming up. So within this grid, you'll see there's a lot of information. This is similar to the screenshot that I just showed you. So we have the name of our script. These scripts that are listed here don't have input files. If they did, you would see the name of their input file. When did it start? So this one was expected to start. Oh, it's refreshing for me. This one was expected to start at 3:05 p.m. It started exactly at 3:05 p.m. It was a very quick script, and it finished within the same minute. So you get a lot of information right here without even having to dig any further. So if you're trying to figure out, you know, what else you can do with this grid, you can actually search for a particular script. So maybe let me see, I'll search for mainframe. So I can search for mainframe and see I have a list of scripts that have mainframe in the name. So of my 227 scripts, I have 5 that qualified for that search. Additionally, I can just sort on any column. So maybe I'm interested in the start time. You know, I want them ordered by when they started. So I can order by start time, I can order by process name, you know, whatever is most meaningful for you, you can set it up that way. For any of these scripts, I can also dig in and take a look and get a little bit more information. So for example, if I click on this one, this script is still processing. So you can see it's partially finished. It's done 3 of 5 records. If I click on it, you'll see that I have a little bit more information here. In this grid right now, you're just seeing 1 line. If we had multiple input files, you would see 1 line per input file. So as it's going through each run of the script with a different input file, you would have your details for that particular execution. So you would know, okay, the first one was successful, the second one wasn't, and so on. And so that would allow you to figure out what happened with each of those particular examples. Additionally, if you're trying to dig through and figure out what's going on with your scripts, there are a couple different ways that you can limit your results. So one really common way that our users found that they like to limit the results was show me everything in an error state. You know, typically that's what needs the most attention. So on each of these PCs, you'll see at the top there's a number that indicates the number of errors that are on that particular machine. So these PCs were running hundreds and hundreds of scripts, and so we have a lot of errors, and that's okay, some of them are supposed to error. But if I click on that number, it'll reduce the results just to those that have an error state. And then you'll notice I have 10 scripts showing per page. I can go on and look at the next page if I want to and see those results. So let me dig into one of these a little bit further. This one here has a little piece of paper with a plus sign on it. That indicates that this is an example that has multiple input files. So if I expand this one, you'll notice that you see a lot of different executions here. So the majority of them went successfully. The only one that's in an error state is here in red. And so all of the others, ran successfully. They processed their record. And then I have 2 here, actually, it looks like, or a couple. Every once in a while, we have one that errors out. So as you're working through your scripts, you may find that you need to know which one of these have I already resolved. Which one of these did I already take care of, and do I not need to come back to? And so when you're looking at one of these scripts, you can actually check one. So let's say I figured out what was going on with computer 1 file 55. Maybe my input file was wrong. I can check that and then click this button that says Mark Selected Errors as Resolved. When I do that, notice the red line went away and now it says Error Resolved. So that's indicating that this one had an error state, but I have since resolved it, so we no longer need to look at it. And I can do that on any one of these that I have resolved. Okay, so I'll just open up a different one. Same thing is true. I can select this one, Mark Selected Errors as Resolved, and even the upper line shows now as being white instead of red. And then when I come up here, this number, which I think had been 19, is now decremented. So you can kind of work through your errors and check them off. So just keep in mind this doesn't actually change anything in EMUE. It's not correcting anything. It's just a checkbox to say, hey, I already worked this one. I don't need to come back to it. So while we're looking at the details, you can also click on this Details button, and this will show you if you have a log file and an activity log, it will give you a link to those 2 files. So assuming that you're within your network, you can right-click and either open this in a new tab, and it will show you the text file in a new tab in your browser, or you can actually copy it and paste it into Windows Explorer and open it up in Notepad. So it's just a quicker way to get more details of exactly what happened with your script. So let me go ahead and close this one up. And I'll just mention a couple more things about this view before we move on. So I mentioned that we have this Today tab, which is showing you everything for today. So what has run, what's going to run, and what is currently running. We also have a History tab. And this is going to take a second to load because we have a lot of history, but the History tab by default goes back a week. So you can see our date range here. Instead of being today, it's everything that had run between 6/22 and 6/29. So you can adjust that. Maybe you were gone for the weekend and you want to take a look and see what happened over the weekend, or you were gone on vacation for 2 weeks and you want to make sure that everything was attended to. So you can really set this up however you want, get the results that you're looking for, and then if you'd like to, you can even export those to Excel if you want to take a look at resource utilization or things like that. So this, again, just gives you a broader range to view what your scripts are doing. And again, that's on a PC by PC basis. I'll show you the script view in just a second. Let me switch back to the Today tab, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about filters. So I did mention the filter of errors, where you click on this flag in the corner of the PC name, and that gives you a list of all the errors on that PC. So that's just kind of a quick shortcut to get there. I clicked on this little arrow and expanded it in order to see all of the statuses that are available. So each of your scripts will have one of these statuses, and you can choose which ones you're interested in seeing. So if you want to see everything except those that are complete, you can filter out complete, or if you want to see, just show me what's scheduled, you can do that. Once you set up your filters, you just hit this refresh button here that's to the right of auto refresh, and that will update your results. So in this case, I have a scheduled script, a processing one, and a whole lot that are complete, since we had a lot of scripts running in the morning. So again, this just helps you drill down to the scripts that you're most interested in as quickly as possible. So one more thing, and then I'll take a quick break for questions. So hopefully you guys have thought of some. Up here, there's another arrow that you can click on, and this is for dashboard help. So what happens when you click on this to expand it is you'll notice there are certain fields that have a little shading in green over them. And so if you hover over them, up here at the top, you'll get a little bit more information about that particular feature of the dashboard. So right here, if I hover, I find out about filters. If I scroll down to status, I can actually get a list of what are these statuses, and what does it mean if I see a little ghost icon? What does a ghost status mean? So you can get a little bit more information. I've got expected start time. exceptions, and so on. So once you get to the point where you feel like you've got the hang of the dashboard, you don't need any more help, you can collapse this and then it won't be in the way, and you can just work on the dashboard as you would. So let's take a quick break here for questions. So if anyone wants to jump in with any questions, we would love to hear anything that you're wondering about.
Well, this is Dale. This is very impressive, extremely useful. One of my questions is, when you do zero in on an error, can it tell you the patient number, the encounter line, so you can go directly to that and fix it on the patient's record? Because we don't actually fix the file. What we do is we go to the encounter, put in the incident report, and then rerun the file. Is that possible?
So
you clicked on the encounter, you clicked on the error.
Uh-huh.
Does that show you the line number that created the error, so we can get the encounter number that caused the error? One of the errors we have is the incident. If a patient doesn't have an incident on an encounter, our script will error. What we do is we get an error report which tells us Jane Brown number 234 needs an incident. We go to that patient record, put in the incident, and then just rerun the file. Does that error report give us that level of detail?
Got it. So is that 234 the line in your file, or is that
No, that's the incident number. So it could be line number 63. The first position is the ECD number.
Okay.
ECD number is 234. It's for Jane Brown.
Gotcha.
Jane Brown doesn't have an incident because somebody forgot to put one in. We can't run the rest of the file until we put in an incident. It's a human factor because you can't decide through EMUE what an incident is. So we give it back to the business office. They look up the record. They say, oh, yeah, she was here the day before. We put in the incident. Then we rerun the same file, but now it'll work because there's an incident for that patient. Does that error give you that level of detail?
Okay, so if I understand your question properly, there are kind of two pieces to this. So in general, we had to be really careful with not transmitting any PHI because then we'd run into security issues. So what you're seeing here is, we're on record 63. You can get a link to your output log. So the output log, I'm assuming, would have that level of detail. So if you're within your network, you would be able to open your output log and see that. It's not going to come through as, just on this details section because while you may be just transmitting an incident number, we need to make sure that no one's transmitting a social security number. So we had to be kind of careful with making sure that you couldn't just send, free text over for security reasons. But assuming that was either in your activity log or your output log, then...
Well, that's what we're doing now. What we're doing now is we get an email that says, line number 63 errored out, it was Jane Brown, gives us the encounter number, but we have to go to the output log. So even with this, though, we still have to go to the output log to actually fix the error.
Right, yeah, and that's because of the PHI issue. So I guess the shortcut here is that, we'll have a link, as you can see, right to that output log. So you should be able to hopefully get to it quickly, but we had to be really careful with what information was sent over so that we didn't run into security issues.
If I'm looking at this on my EMUE server, though, I'm in protected space. Will it show me, or do I have to go to my own PC and look at the output log?
If you're within your network and you click on the log file, you'll be able to open it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's my question.
Yeah. So you wouldn't have to necessarily be on the EMUE machine, just, within your network or connected to your VPN.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for your question. Any other questions?
Hi, Rachel. Robbie Brank from Albany Medical Center. I had joined late. I apologize. Is this something that we need to download to the machine running EMUE to our web server that would be running the scripts, or is this something hosted by Databound?
Yeah, good question. So this is hosted by Databound. So the only thing that you'll need to do on your EMUE machine is register that particular machine with the dashboard. So there won't be anything to download, and this can be accessed from like I was mentioning with the PHI issues, because we want you to be able to access it, from your phone, from your tablet, from your laptop at home, wherever, you can do that. There's nothing to download. It's just accessing a web page.
Okay, so it's basically it's a visitor type of application then.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
And Kelly's going to talk in a little bit more detail about some of those pieces as well. So I don't think you really missed the answer to your question.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Other questions? Okay, so I'm going to switch back over and we're going to change gears. So if I switch back, the next thing I want to talk about is the schedule view. So we talked about the system view and the PC view. And the schedule view is quite a bit different. So as I mentioned, you can see what's going to run on your machine, and that's pretty novel for EMUE. You know, everything you've been used to in the past has been you get an email when it's done, you can go in and check and see what's currently running, but unless you dig into the scheduled tasks, you're not going to see what's scheduled to run in the future, where that's changing right now. So with this schedule view, EMUE actually ties into the scheduler and pushes your script schedule out to the dashboard so that the dashboard can predict what's coming up. So in this example here on the screenshot, you'll notice that there are a bunch of scripts that are scheduled to run, looks like 11 p.m., and they have, each one has a different block. This is actually average runtime. That's how it's predicting how long the script will run. And then the green scripts correspond to scripts that run on a PC called SCF Emu PC, and the orange ones correspond to a PC that's called AKA Emu Server. So this is a view, in this case it's just showing one day, you can see there's a lot running. It's a view of what's running on any particular day according to the schedule. And so this allows you, as I mentioned a little earlier, to figure out where should a new script go. You know, so if I'm looking at this view, I'm probably not going to schedule something for midnight. We already have a lot running at that point. I could also look and see, okay, when can I reboot my machine? You know, so I might be able to reboot the server at 4 a.m. because nothing will be running then on this orange machine. And then it also gives you a view of what's going on in all your scripts. So if you're trying to figure out, you know, am I using my PCs efficiently? You know, where do we have gaps? You can see that all visually in this view. So let me show it to you live. So again, the third view here is the schedule view. And by default, it's actually showing a week. And then you can select whichever PCs are registered to this dashboard that you're interested in seeing. So I'm going to select this VPC08. I know that these scripts run late in the day, and I'll select a couple more just to get a few more scripts on here. So I can see what's coming up, and if I click on any one of these, I actually get a lot more details for the particular script. So this is one called Schedule Test EMU. If I look down at the bottom, I can see that this runs at 8 a.m. every day, and it's repeating every 15 minutes for an hour. And I can also see an expected end time. So the expected start time, it's not hard to figure out where that comes from. That's actually coming from the Windows scheduler. So it's, scheduled to run at 8, so we expect it to run at 8. The expected end time is actually using historical data from the dashboard. So from the time that your PC is registered with the dashboard, it's going to be recording when your scripts run so that you can go back and see them in your history, but it's also going to take an average time, and that's what it's going to use to determine when it thinks the script is going to end. So you'll notice this is a really quick script. On average, it runs for 34 seconds and then it closes. And so that's why each of these bars is so skinny, because each one of these is a really quick script. Whereas if you had a script that ran for 6 hours, you would see a 6-hour block of time chunked off here. So that gives you an idea of where your gaps are. So on this machine, I might schedule a reboot at 10 a.m. or maybe I would run an ad hoc, you know, at 9:30. So it's a real visual way to see what's going on. So let me switch back again for a second. So there are a couple ways that the dashboard schedule view can know when to expect your scripts. The first is from the Windows scheduler, as I mentioned before. And the second is you can actually set up your own expected start time. So there are cases where you may not have a scheduled task. For example, if you have a script that runs at 8 a.m. and then when it's done, it kicks off a second script, that second script wouldn't be run from the Windows scheduler. And so the second script isn't going to show up with an expected start time, but you still want to know about it. So you can actually set up a manual schedule that doesn't cause it to run. All it does is it tells the dashboard when to expect it to run, so that if it doesn't run, you'll know about it. So let me back up to the dashboard again. And I'm actually going to switch over to our system view. And I'm going to change my filters. So I want to see scheduled tasks as well. I'm actually not too interested in errors. So let me see. I guess I need to run something later. So let me see which PC has something running later. Was it VPC 15? Yes. So this one has scripts running later. So let me take a look at those on my system view. So if I switch to DBS VPC 15, then I can look at my scheduled tasks. So this has a lot of tasks that are scheduled to run. So I can look and see this is what's coming up later. So in addition to seeing things that scripts that haven't run yet on your schedule view, you can also see them on the Today tab if they're scheduled to run today and have not yet run. So you'll see that we have a bunch starting at 4 o'clock that will be running later. If we had a script that, say, was scheduled for 8 o'clock that didn't run, you would still see it here if it hadn't run, except it would have a yellow bar here indicating that it was in a warning status. So that's saying we expected a script to run, but it didn't, so you better check on it. If it does run accordingly, then it's going to move to a different status like completed or processing or something like that. So this is something that really wasn't available previously because in the past, let's say the carpets are changed in your office and your computer's unplugged. All of your scripts aren't going to run, and you're certainly not going to be notified of that because the machine isn't on, it can't do anything. But the dashboard's still going to be checking in saying, hey, we have a script that was scheduled to run this morning, it didn't run, what's wrong? And so by logging in, you'll be able to see pretty quickly that, hey, a script was supposed to run and it didn't, I might need to do something about it. And so it gives you a quick heads up that you wouldn't have had before. So let me change this view for a second. I'm going to grab a script that's not scheduled. And actually, I'm going to switch over. So I mentioned before that you can set your own expected start time. So it can either retrieve a schedule from the Windows scheduler or you can set up your own expected start time. So if you want to do that, you can go to Manage and then Manage Scripts. And this will give you a list of all your scripts that for each system that run. So I'm just going to use my first system here, and I'll choose Activity Log with File. And this gives me some additional settings for this script. I'll talk about those more in detail in a minute. So you'll notice here that there's no schedule information. So this one is not running on a schedule. So what I want to do is I want to turn the predicted schedule on. So even though it doesn't have a Windows schedule set up, I want to set up my own schedule. So I know that this is a daily script, and I'm going to call it Daily Scheduled Script. And I can set a start time. And I'm going to set this for noon, and then I'm going to have it recur every 3 days. Once I hit OK, you'll notice there's a new schedule that shows here. This manual type indicates that this is a schedule I set up myself, and then this script will now report to both the Today tab and the Schedule view to show that this is an upcoming script. So again, it just gives you more flexibility for starting this. In addition, I have an option here to display a warning after a certain amount of time if it hasn't started yet. So I mentioned that record in the dashboard will turn yellow. You can actually configure how long do you want it to wait before it turns yellow. So, maybe you're roughly expecting a script to start at 8 a.m., but it may not start until, 9 a.m. So you want to give it some flexibility. So I could set this to 1 hour and say, okay, I want my expected start time to, flag me if it hasn't run after an hour. And then I can go ahead and save my changes. Okay, so now the changes are saved, and I can switch back over to the dashboard. So let's take a quick break here to see if there are any other questions before I move on. The scheduling can be kind of a little more complicated than some of the other pieces. Any questions about either scheduling or anything else we've covered or that you're interested in knowing?
Do you have like samples that we can follow so we can absorb it? Because it definitely will take some adjusting to.
Yeah, so we have, Kelly's going to talk about some additional resources that we have at the end. We have some training videos, and which we're still adding to, as well as a couple of guides with some more information.
Yeah, because practice makes perfect, you know.
Absolutely.
We're watching you speed through it, but, you know, we're a little bit slower.
Yeah, of course.
Your recurring jobs, you said that you could have them, for instance, run every 15 minutes. From this dashboard, are we able to squash a current run that's running long and have it restart in 15 minutes if we have a file that goes out every 15 minutes, we'll say, and I need something to drag it to pull it through. There might have been bad data at one point, but the data changes, so 15 minutes later it might be clean data.
So you want to kill the current execution and then so that it will just pick up the next time?
Correct.
Okay, great question. So this is something that we had a lot of interest in from our beta users, which is basically having some control over your scripts. So either changing the schedule, starting a script, stopping a script, restarting, that kind of thing. So definite interest there. The short answer is we can't do that right now, and that's something that we've kind of talked about for maybe a version 2 of the dashboard because it is a pretty big endeavor development-wise. So right now it's pretty much read-only, but that's definitely something that you're not the only person who's interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Okay, so I'll go ahead and move on. So the last thing that I want to show you before I hand this over to Kelly is there are a few more options for configuring your setup and just kind of tweaking it to give you exactly what you want. So a couple of places that you can do that. On each script, if you go into the details, there's a little cog here with some settings. So this isn't the full list of settings, but this is one place you can get to some quick settings. So I'll go over what those are now. The first one is this user-defined field. And so this is a very open-ended way that you can provide extra information about any script. So maybe you want to provide instructions such as, please do not restart this script, contact Rachel in patient accounts. So you can provide whatever information here you want, and it will be displayed with that script. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then if I refresh this page, or actually I should just be able to close it and open it, you'll notice that that message appears right here. So it's pretty quick to get to. So, maybe as the script writer, you want to provide instructions, and you have someone else who's managing or watching the script, so you can provide any message that you want to. They could provide a message back to you if you wanted. So it's just very open-ended. If I go back into the settings cog, I also have an option down here to hide script executions. So if I turn this on, I can actually prevent the script from showing up in the dashboard. So when we were working with our betas, there were a couple instances where this was useful. One of them was during development. If you're writing a script, you may not want people who are watching the dashboard to get nervous every time the script errors or fails, because that's kind of part of the development process. So you can choose to hide the script. Another scenario was we had one beta who has a script that's scheduled to run every 5 minutes. It does a quick check in their system and then sends an email if it finds whatever it's looking for. So it's pretty basic, but you can imagine how many times it would show up in their dashboard on the Today tab alone if it runs every 5 minutes. So they found that that was really just clogging up the dashboard, and they didn't want to see it. So what they did was they decided to hide that one so that it wouldn't show up. So if I choose to hide this, I can save it, And this script is called Handle Web Dialog. If I refresh my results, that script is now gone. So I may want to add it back in. If I go back to Manage, the more complete list of settings is available under Manage Scripts. So I can always manage my scripts there. First, you select your PC, and then this one was called Handle Web Dialog. And I can scroll down and unhide this. So this is the same setting or page of settings that we got to from the schedule view. So you'll notice the schedule information is here. You can set up a schedule if you want. My user-defined field is here. I can turn on my predicted schedule if I want to, etc. So those are a couple options you can get to from here. Let me switch back to the dashboard. I talked earlier about the filters, so right now you can see here what's highlighted is the active filters are complete and scheduled. So that helps me to narrow down my list of scripts to the ones I'm interested in, but we found that sometimes that wasn't enough. So we had some hospitals in our beta that were very large and they run hundreds of scripts. And so if one person is only interested in 5 scripts, they don't want to see all 150 that run that day. You know, they really only want to see the ones that they're interested in. Or maybe you want to look at all of your scripts for a certain hospital that you support, you know, as opposed to a different hospital. Or maybe you want to see your web scripts or your Sorian scripts or whatever it is that you're particularly interested in that only you can define. Sometimes you just want to narrow it down in whatever way you want to. So what we did to help you out with that was what we're calling custom categories. So you can set up categories for scripts and then assign one or more categories to any script and then filter on that. So I'll show you how that works. If we go into Manage Dashboard, this is actually done at the dashboard level. And again, I know I'm going through a lot of material. A lot of what we'll have here will be in individual training videos. So you can come back and say, you know, I forget how to use custom categories. Show me a video just for that. So, you know, don't worry if we're covering a lot. And we're also recording this webinar if you want to come back to it. So in general, you'll probably only have one dashboard, but if you have more than one, you want to select your correct dashboard first. And then down here at the bottom, we have custom script categories. So right now there aren't any. So I'm going to add a few. And you can call them whatever you want. So I'm going to set up one just for the scripts that I'm interested in. So no one else is going to care about this label, but I do. So I'll have Rachel's scripts, and then I'm going to set up one for Hospital A, and I'll set up one for Hospital B, and then I'll do one more for Sorian scripts. And these don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can have one script that's Hospital A and Sorian scripts. So it's very flexible in that way. So once your categories are set up, you can go back to your dashboard, and in either of the script setting locations, so if I click here and get to the settings from the settings cog, or under Manage Scripts, I can get to the same thing. I can choose to add a script category. So I'm going to say I want this to be Rachel's scripts, and I want it to be Hospital A. And then I can save that, and I'll do it again on a couple more just so we have a better example. So I'll make this one Hospital B, and Rachel's scripts, and Sorian scripts. And save it. And then if I go back up to the top and take a look at my filters, right now I have a lot filtered out, so I'm going to add those all back in. And then down here you'll see script category. So I can again choose any category that I'm interested in. So if I choose Rachel's scripts, you can choose more than one if you'd like. And then I refresh my results. You'll notice that I just see those 2 scripts that I just added to that category. So again, this is just to help you get more flexibility so that you can narrow down your results to exactly what you're interested in. Another thing that's kind of cool in the interface that gives you some more flexibility, as I mentioned before, is this little grid here next to the settings cog on the scripts by system actually allows you to choose which columns you're interested in. So maybe I don't care about the input file. Maybe I don't even have an input file, so I don't want to see it. I can click on that and add or remove it. Maybe I don't care about process records, so I can really customize this to fit my needs again. One more column here that I haven't really talked about so far is exceptions. Again, I can add or remove it. Let's say I want to keep it. This is a pretty flexible field. Basically, it's a counter that you can keep in your script and report to the dashboard. So you can define an exception to be however you want it. So within your script, maybe you're looking up a patient and it comes back that the patient account number is wrong, or there's missing information, or whatever the case may be. You can decide that that's an exception and you want to be able to see that value in the dashboard. So you can increment that within your script, and then that value will automatically be pushed out to the dashboard. And then that will show up as exceptions. Process records happens automatically because that's basically going off of your input file or your list. So it'll say, we're on record 50 of 100, whereas exceptions is really defined by you. So again, giving you a little bit more flexibility to get the information that you need for your particular processing. So those are a lot of the configurations. I know I've covered a lot of material. Mostly what we want you to get from this is a understanding of what the dashboard is, kind of a basics on how to get started, and then we have other resources, for both getting you set up. Our support team will help with that, and then also, refreshers on different topics and things that you would want to know how to do within the dashboard. So why don't we take a quick break? We'll do questions again, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kelly to get into a few more technical details.
Everybody should be on.
So Kelly, do you know if everyone's on? Oh, I'm sorry. Could you go ahead? I think we just got you unmuted.
Okay. This is Jody at Cahuilla Delta. So
Hi, Jody.
if I have a team of 4 people that monitor the dashboard, say, one typically watches for 1 week and then another watches for the following week, can they each have their own views? So I saw you applying different filters and different categories. So can each person customize that, or is it based on what machine they're using?
Great question. So that is actually based on the view that you're in and the user. So if I come in here and I set up all my filters the way I like them, the next time I come back to this view, those filters will be the same way. The categories are actually set up at a dashboard level, so those categories that are available will be available to everyone, but you can set them up for each user, and then in general, the way that your dashboard is viewed is remembered on a per user basis.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, let me hand it off to Kelly, and I'll let him take the next section.
I think I am unmuted today.
Yes, you
this
are.
Afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to mute everybody back again just so we can keep the background noise down. So hopefully you can see my PowerPoint presentation there now. So I want to get into a little bit about who can actually use the dashboard, so a little more administrative, a little bit more administrative oriented than what Rachel was talking about. So first off, who can use the dashboard? Okay, right now if you're an enterprise or an enterprise plus web, meaning most of the time that's our Sorian customers, you're automatically entitled to have access to the dashboard. Okay, if you're Express, it doesn't come with that particular edition. There's some information down at the bottom of the last bullet point that if you're interested in actually upgrading from Express to an Enterprise edition, we want you to reach out to our sales folks to get some information about what the pricing would be and how the licensing works and all that good stuff. Now, like I said, Enterprise plus Web have access to it. Okay, how many people can access it? Maybe you're thinking, okay, I've got a group of people that I want to have access to this. So how do we manage access to it? So right now, any enterprise web customers that have an active contract with us are entitled to at least 2 user accounts to the dashboard. Okay, if and that's based on how many licenses you have. So for instance, in that first bullet point, if you have 2 Emu PCs or 2 licenses that you have, then you would get 4 user accounts. Okay, if you only have 1 PC, you would get 2 user accounts. If you have a different licensing package, such as something like a bulk pack or a site license where you can install it on a number of machines, but you have X number of supported users or script writers. For instance, if some Sorian customers have a site license so they can install Emu on as many machines as they want, okay, but they have 3 or 4 maybe designated script writers, okay, the people that we go and train, the people that we support. Even though they can install it on as many machines as they want, we're going to delegate or hand out the number of licenses based on the number of script writers. So if you had 3 or 4 script writers, then you would get 2 licenses per script writer. So if you had 4 total users or 4 total script writers, then you would have 8 dashboard licenses. Okay, so looking at that first bullet point, everybody's entitled to at least 2 based on the setup that they have, but there's a big OR statement right there in the middle that says each dashboard customer is granted a minimum of 5. Okay, so this is going to be the greater of those 2 scenarios. So if you're someone who has 1 Emu PC, okay, and that equates to 2 user accounts, we're going to say, okay, we're going to give you 5 at a minimum. Okay, so it's going to be one of the or, whichever one of those numbers are greater. You're not going to be restricted down to 5. If you have 10 Emu machines, you'll get 20 accounts. So just take the higher of those 2 numbers depending on the scenario that applies to your facility. Okay, if you have a question about that, you can ask in just a second. There's also the option that you can purchase additional user accounts as well. So you're not limited. If you want more, you can certainly purchase more as well. Okay. So how do we get started? So Rachel has shown us everything that the dashboard can do, probably information overload a little bit. So there's a lot of content there. But going forward from this call, how will you get started? So this slide is just talking about these are the steps you're going to take in order to get set up. We want you to reach out to our support group. We've got their phone number there. Some of you probably already have their emails. You can go to our website and put in a support request if you'd like to do that. But the main point here is that we're going to have to set up your dashboard for you and create your user accounts for you the first time. Okay, so we can assist with that. It's not very complicated. It's a couple of steps. And then once we get the account set up, then we're going to have to also, and this is not on the slide here, but you're going to have to upgrade your Emu version. Okay, right now we are on our current version is 4.4.1054. It's on our website as well. We can definitely direct you and give you the file and help you install, upgrade, and all that good stuff. But you are going to have the latest version because it does. If you're running an older version, you won't be able to use the dashboard feature, of course. So once you get that installed, we get your dashboard set up, we're going to go inside Emu and actually register your machine. So if you have whatever machine you want to report to the dashboard, we're going to have to go through this process of bringing up this little screen on the right-hand side, which is the dashboard maintenance screen. And what we're going to do there is enter in our username, password that we just created for the dashboard and have you log in. And when you log in, it's going to automatically detect what your machine name is. It's going to detect what your what dashboards are available, and kind of you can pick your time zone depending on where you are in the country. Okay, and you can give us also a different name. A lot of times, like you saw before, you saw DBS, VPC 01, 02, 03, 04. Okay, for some users, that machine name is not necessarily important. They don't really like it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So you also have the ability to rename that so that it shows up differently in the dashboard. If you want to just call it Emu Prod or Emu Test or whatever you want to call them, something that's a little bit more meaningful to you. Okay, once you get all that stuff set up, it's simply clicking register your PC. You'll see a message at the bottom that you had a successful registration. And then there's this last button down here at the bottom, and Rachel talked about scheduling and showing up how your scheduled jobs report to the dashboard. when you initially register, if you want to, EMU can automatically just take everything from your Windows scheduler that's EMU related and pull that information into the dashboard by clicking that Send Script Schedules. Okay, so it's going to go to your task scheduler, look at all the EMU tasks, pull them in, they'll show up as scheduled, from today going forward, and give you that calendar view that she was showing earlier. So that'll do all of them at one time, just for that particular machine though. So if it's a different machine, of course that one's not going to show up on those from this particular one. So it's individual machines. If you choose not to do that, then if it is on a scheduled task and it runs, when those tasks run, they will report their own schedule to the dashboard. So, if you didn't do this or you missed this step or whatever, eventually as your scripts run, they will automatically all trigger their schedule to the dashboard. So it's not a huge deal if you miss it, but if you want it all display at one time at the beginning, then make sure you do that. Okay, and then lastly down here we have a dedicated Emu Dashboard page, and when you click on this page, it's going to bring you to this. So this will be in the PowerPoint, and we'll make sure to send this out afterwards. But it's also on our databoundhealthcare.com site. So if you just go to products, and then at the very bottom it says Emu Dashboard, it's got all kinds of things, and maybe you've already seen this in some of the communication that we sent out. But a short overview video here just to kind of give you, here's what it can do. You've probably seen that already. A description of the views that Rachel covered. Here's some things about what our beta customers have been saying about the dashboard. So if you want a perspective that's not Databound's, if you want to see what our customers are actually saying and things that they're valuing there's some quotes there as well. And then more importantly, down here at the bottom for your resources that you can take advantage of. So again, videos. These are videos here talking about how to log in, how to register, check on your scripts. Okay, a lot of the things that Rachel covered today. So if you are a little fuzzy on the things that she talked about and you want a refresher, in a couple weeks or something like that, here's the place to come. All that information is here. There's also some technical documentation down here, pre-installation checklists, like, again, what version of EMU do you need? What browsers does the dashboard work with? Can you use Chrome? Can you do this, that, and the other? And also how to identify your EMU edition and version. Like I said before, Enterprise, Enterprise Plus Web are eligible. If you don't know what you have, you can certainly take a look at this and figure out which one you do have if you don't know. Okay. And again, if you have any questions, contact us. Send an email to Rachel, me, if you have any questions whatsoever, and we look forward to getting you set up using this. So at this time, we've got about 6 minutes left before the top of the hour. So I'm going to unmute everybody again after we've talked about those two things there, and see if there's any last questions here before we wrap it up. So I'll open the floor up.
Well, I don't have a question, but I do have a compliment. You guys, it's obvious you put in a whole lot of work. It looks really nice, and it's going to be kind of exciting to go through this and learn it.
Thanks a lot, Dale. Appreciate that. I can't speak to, Rachel can probably speak more to the development process, but I'm sure at the end of a long period of time seeing something come to fruition, she's very pleased and happy to hear comments like that. So as a whole from Databound, we appreciate those words. Any other comments or questions before we let you go? All right. If not, we appreciate your attendance, and be sure to let us know if there's anything we can do for you. And hope you have a nice holiday weekend.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.